The year is 146 BC. We are in the garden of Cornelia, the daughter of Scipio Africanus, mother to Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, and aunt and mother-in-law to Scipio Aemilianus. Now around 40, Cornelia was a strikingly beautiful woman, no doubt inherited from her father Scipio.
Daughter, mother, wife, widow. It is a strange thing, Hilaria, to look at a life and realize it has always been defined by the men we lose. My father's shadow is so long, it reaches even into this garden, 30 years after his death. Which of these roles is a woman's greatest achievement? What do you think?
I think...
The woman smiled, though she kept her eyes lowered for a moment. Sempronia Hilaria was a freedwoman who had spent half her life in the service of this house before receiving her liberty from Cornelia's late husband. She was roughly Cornelia's age, and while her beauty was of a more rugged, earthbound sort, she carried herself with a quiet efficiency and grace that made her indispensable to the estate.
A long shadow provides a cool place to rest, Cornelia. You have carried the name Scipio with more grace than any of the men who bear it. But I think you have left out a category.
And what would that be?
Lover.
The word was spoken softly. Hilaria's hand drifted toward the talisman hanging from her neck, a fascinum of old bronze. Beside her sat Blosius, a philosopher born in the Greek town of Cumae, in southern Italy. While they sat a respectful distance apart, Hilaria's fingers brushed the stone bench near Blosius's hand, and the two shared a fleeting, private look. Blosius exuded an air of dignity with his greying hair and neatly trimmed beard, a match for Hilaria's grounded wisdom. Cornelia noted the subtle current between her trusted confidant and the tutor of her children. She was moved by the quiet understanding between these two adults who had found a soulmate in one another.
What prompts you to pose this question?
As a pedagogue of the Stoic school, he tended to question a question rather than answer it. Cornelia shut her eyes and lifted her face to the warm sunlight. It was a quiet day on the Palatine. She heard the music of birdsong from the rooftops.
Idle musings. I was thinking that Hilaria and I both lost our fathers at an early age. We are both widows, though our paths to this garden were very different. After my father's death, relatives arranged for me to wed dear old Tiberius Gracchus.
He was a man of great gravity, Cornelia. He gave you many wonderful children.
12 to be exact. Each was precious to me. Alas, that only 3 survived. I look at them, Tiberius, so earnest and quiet, and I wonder if I have given them a legacy or a shroud. I want them to be great, Hilaria, not for my sake, but because Rome is becoming a place where only the great can survive.
But what remarkable children those 3 are, thanks in no small part to their instruction from Blosius and your own tireless hand. Your daughter Sempronia is already happily married, and the world expects great things of your sons.
I think we've answered the question, at least regarding myself. Since I no longer have a living father or husband, and no time for a lover, motherhood is my highest role. My achievement will be my sons. I do not want to be remembered as the daughter of Africanus because I am proud. I want to be remembered as the mother of the Gracchi, because I want my sons to be the men who lead Rome in these dire times.
Many an old-fashioned Roman would be appalled to overhear a woman speak of her sons as a sculptor speaks of marble.
Yet here we sit. The world is tilting, Hilaria. After my father defeated Hannibal, there was a sense of purpose. Now, we have more gold than we have virtue. The world changes.
The world is always changing, sometimes for the worse.
Then it will be up to our children to change it for the better.
And which of your sons will do more to change the world?
Hard to say. They're so different. Tiberius is so serious, so earnest for an 18-year-old, mature beyond his years. Now that he's a soldier, off fighting those poor Carthaginians, or what's left of them, I hope his outlook doesn't become even more somber. Little Gaius is only 9, but what a different fellow he is. I fear he may be rather too impulsive and hot-tempered.
But very sure of himself, especially for a boy his age. As their tutor, I can say that both brothers are remarkably self-confident, a trait I attribute to their mother.
I attribute that to their grandfather, though he was dead long before either was born. How I wish the boys could have known him, and that I could have known him longer than I did. Still, I've done all I can to instill in the boys a deep respect for their grandfather's accomplishments. They bear the name Gracchus proudly, but they are also obliged to live up to the standards of Scipio Africanus. It is a heavy thing to hand down.
Cornelia blinked and shaded her eyes. The garden had suddenly grown too hot, and the sunlight too bright. The singing birds had fallen silent.
They say it's no longer a question of if Carthage is destroyed.
But when, and when that happens,
Carthage shall be the second city in a matter of months to suffer such a fate at Rome's hands.
The philosopher resided in Cornelia's house, and he and the mistress of the house saw each other almost daily. Their thoughts often ran side by side, like horses hitched together.
When General Mummius captured Corinth, there was rejoicing in the streets of Rome.
and weeping in the streets of Corinth, every male citizen killed, every woman enslaved. One of the most sophisticated and opulent cities in all Greece, obliterated by Roman arms.
Temples were desecrated. Priceless works of art were destroyed by his rioting soldiers. Even the most anti-Greek reactionaries in Rome were embarrassed by Mummius's barbarism.
An example to anyone who would dare to challenge our supremacy, according to Mummius.
Cornelia fell silent and looked curiously towards the forum. Over the sound of bird-song in her garden, she could hear the city stirring.
Do you hear a commotion of some sort?
From the forum?
Closer than that, I think. Myron.
A young slave sitting on the ground nearby scrambled to his feet. Cornelia sent him to find out what was going on. While they awaited his return, the three of them sat silently, sharing the same unease. A commotion meant news of some sort. News could be good, or... At last Myron returned, out of breath, but smiling.
Mistress, tremendous news from Africa. Carthage has been taken. The war is over. A ship landed at Ostia this morning, and the messengers have just arrived in Rome. That's all I've found out so far. But if you wish, I can run down to the forum.
Hilaria's eyes welled with tears, a silent relief for the sons of the house. Blossius reached out, momentarily forgetting himself, and squeezed her hand firmly before pulling back to a more formal posture. Watching them, Cornelia suddenly felt very alone. The heat of the garden made her feel faint.
Yes, Myron, go and see what else you can discover. Perhaps there's some word about Roman casualties.
At once, mistress.
Myron spun about and abruptly collided with a man who was just stepping into the garden. Cornelia shielded her eyes from the sun. She squinted at the newcomer, then let out a cry.
Nicomedes, is it really you?
The man was one of Tiberius's slaves. He had accompanied his master to Carthage.
But Nicomedes, what are you doing here? Why aren't you still with Tiberius?
Despite the heat, Cornelia shivered.
Rather than speak for my master may speak for himself.
Nicomedes smiled and produced a covered wax tablet from the pouch he carried.
A letter from Tiberius.
Inscribed by my own hand amid the smoking ruins of Carthage, as dictated by your son, mistress, who is not only alive and well, but a hero of the Roman legions.
A hero?
As you shall understand when you read his letter.
Cornelia nodded. She felt strangely calm.
Myron, go and fetch young Gaius. He should be present to hear his brother's letter read aloud. Blossius, will you do it? My hands are shaking, and I don't think I could make sense of the letters.
A moment later, Gaius appeared, running ahead of Myron. He was a handsome boy, the very image of his grandfather.
Is it true, Mother? Carthage is taken, and there's a letter from Tiberius?
Yes, Gaius. Sit here beside me while Blossius reads it.
The philosopher cleared his throat.
To my beloved mother, daughter of the great Africanus, I write these words to you from the city my grandfather once conquered, which has just been conquered again by Roman arms. It shall never be conquered a third time. From this day forward, Carthage shall no longer exist. Along with this letter, Nicomedes also brings a memento from me. It is the mural crown, which I was awarded for having been the first soldier to scale the enemy walls.
From his pouch, Nicomedes produced a crown made of silver and moulded to resemble a crenellated wall with towers, such as might encircle a city. He presented the crown to Cornelia.
Your son received it in a public ceremony before the troops and wore it at a place of honor at the victory feast. He sent it home with me so that his mother might be the first in Rome to see it.
The first to scale the walls, the first Roman inside Carthage. Can you imagine how dangerous that must have been?
Cornelia could well imagine, and the thought made her light-headed. But she managed a smile and placed the crown atop Gaius's head. It was too big for him and slipped over his eyes. Everyone laughed. Gaius angrily pushed the crown from his head. It fell to the paving stones with a clatter.
That's not funny, Mother. The crown wasn't meant for me.
Hush, Gaius. Do not look at the silver of the crown. Look at the smoke in your brother's words. Let us hear the rest of the letter. Blossius, please continue.
For your household, I also have good news. Hilaria's nephew, who served in my personal guard, fought bravely in the battle. He killed many of the enemy and sustained no injuries.
Thank the gods!
Hilaria pressed her hands to her heart. Blossius peered at the tablet intently, reading ahead. His face was grim.
Go on, Blossius. What else does Tiberius write?
Only a bit of description of the battle itself, nothing of a personal nature.
Very well, let's hear it.
I'm not sure I should read this aloud in front of the boy, or in front of you for that matter. I suppose it's a mark of Tiberius's deep respect for you that he should write to his mother as candidly as he might have written to his late father.
We have shared the same books and the same thoughts for years. If you won't read it aloud, I will.
Cornelia put aside the mural crown, rose to her feet, and took the tablet from him.
As for Carthage, the ghost of Cato may finally rest. The city, which was as old as Rome, is now utterly destroyed. The harbour is demolished, the houses burned, the altars for human sacrifice reduced to rubble. The gardens have been uprooted. The grand mosaics of the public squares have been stained with blood. Many were slain in the final struggle, and the few who survive will become slaves. The city that once rivaled Rome now lies in ashes. When Alexander conquered Persia, he chose to leave the city of Babylon intact and to make its people his subjects. For his clemency, he was exalted by gods and men. We have followed an older example, that of the Greeks who sacked the city of Troy and left only ruins behind. The Greek playwrights tell of many misfortunes that subsequently befell the victorious Greeks, Ajax, Ulysses, Agamemnon, and the rest. I pray the gods will favour what we have done to Carthage and will grant a righteous destiny to the Roman people, who have done this fearful thing for the glory of Jupiter.
Her hands trembling, Cornelia put down the tablet. Her eyes looked distant, haunted.
Oh, Tiberius, my poor somber boy, what has this war done to your soul?
If only I could have been there. What a glorious day it must have been. And now it shall never happen again, because Carthage is gone, and I was too young to be there. I can hardly wait for Tiberius to come home and tell me more about it.
Be careful what you wish to see, Gaius. The fall of a great city is not a spectacle for boys.
Hilaria turned away, unable to look at the child's excitement.
War is the way of the world, and always will be. Clearly, the gods of Rome were greater than those of Carthage. For that, we must be thankful, and yet, I am fearful for Rome's future. How astute is Tiberius when he points to the example of the Greeks against Troy. I am reminded of the Greek hero Achilles, who was very nearly invincible, yet when he desecrated the corpse of the Trojan Hector, the gods frowned upon his hubris and withdrew their protection, and Achilles died like any other mortal on the battlefield. Rome has entered a new era. With the destruction of Corinth, the Romans' respect for Greek culture degenerated to wanton looting. With the destruction of Carthage, the Romans are without rival in the Mediterranean. But how will Rome bear the responsibilities of power and wealth unprecedented in the history of the world? We must pray that the gods will give Rome wise men to lead her into the future, and wise women to nurture those men as boys.
Blossius, Hilaria, and Cornelia each turned their eyes to young Gaius. Inspired by visions of the carnage at Carthage, he had dared to pick up the mural crown and was testing its fit on his brow again, oblivious of their scrutiny.